Welcome to Season 2 of Rooted and Reaching, a podcast about startups, entrepreneurs, and innovation in the South Bend-Elkhart region of Indiana. I'm Marty Mechtenberg.
And I'm Susan Ford. We're excited to share 16 new stories with you this year. And we're going to get tactical about how entrepreneurs are confronting challenges, building success, and moving our region into the future.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Season 2 of Rooted and Reaching. We have today the great pleasure and honor of interviewing Mike Brown, who is the founder of SOULSTIR Publishing. Do I have that right?
You got it right.
All right.
We're going a big, it's like calling Disney Publishing, right? Disney's Disney, man.
There you go. There you go.
SOULSTIR.
So Mike has a fantastic story that goes far beyond just the work that he does in publishing, but that's his entrepreneurial business that we're talking about specifically today.
Yeah.
His journey, however, has many fun twists and turns, and it's very inspirational from start to finish. Mike, I don't know what you want to start with. If we start with SOULSTIR, maybe just tell us, where did the name come from, and maybe get into your background and how you got where you are today.
Sure. So first, thanks, Marty, for having me.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Susan, here, and just excited for this opportunity to share and hopefully inspire and encourage someone who may be listening to the podcast. So really, SOULSTIR came out of a journey of personal reflection and discernment during 2020. And it's during that time where I really tried to figure out what's my purpose, like what am I here to do on this earth? If you can recall, right, in 2020, there's a lot of heightened racial injustice. There was a global health pandemic. And then I'll say the third big factor was a lot of the political divide, which all equaled hate.
A lot going on.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out what can I do? I'm not one necessarily post a lot of political content on social media. I'm not necessarily out marching and protesting. And so I tried to figure out what can I do? And what I learned through that process is that I'm an invigorating force. So I bring a lot of energy to any room that I enter. Yeah. I inspire people. I motivate people. Yeah. And so I decided to take what that meant, and it became something that stirs your soul. So ultimately, my soul has been stirred in so many different ways through books that I may read, through music and songs that I listen to. There may be someone that's speaking at an event, and there's something that they may say or something that you may witness in a movie where it stirs something up inside of you. And so it was a combination of that, along with there's a gospel song that I love. It's called "Stir Up the Gift." It's a song I listened to my whole life.
Do you ever sing it?
Do I ever sing it?
Yeah.
It requires a choir. How about that?
Okay, next time.
Very tempting to ask.
It's so tempting.
There
Next time.
But stir up the gift inside of you. And that's kind of what continued. But trust me, there was a lot of other company names that were, if you can imagine, on a journey. It was Brown Impact Group, the Brown Company. There was a lot of ideas.
I like Stir Soul better.
SOULSTIR.
Yes.
It landed. It feels right. It was right.
Yeah. Great.
One quick follow-up to that. Was there, I mean, 2020 was a weird time for everybody. Yep. Was there a particular moment where you can see, I mean, I know the environment, but was there a precise moment?
Yeah. So yes, there was. So the year started with, number one, this is outside of the pandemic. Number one, it started with me formally getting started on a book that I'm working on still. It's a book about the former leprechauns at Notre Dame. And so I ultimately interviewed 60 leprechauns in 2020. And so I'm working to put their stories into a book. And so February of 20 is when I would say that was kind of the launching point when I decided to ultimately do that.
Cool.
Then I was part of a podcast that at the end of February. And during that podcast, I reflected heavily on life and just my journey. And that's when I decided to start my own podcast and reflect and share. And so that's what guided me throughout that year. But it was on September 17th, 2020, that my grandmother, my paternal late grandmother, she was honored in my hometown of Milwaukee with a highway that was named after her.
Wow.
She's a big time community leader, community servant. Her, my great grandmother, my dad, and a number of people across my family. but that's her birthday. And it was on that day that they installed a sign for a part of the highway that's dedicated
What is
in
it
her
called?
memory. It's Janetta Robinson Simpson Memorial Highway in Milwaukee. It goes right through downtown Milwaukee. It's beautiful. People, my friends now who know about it, they tell me all the time, driving by your grandmother's sign. So it was beautiful.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, but it was that day.
Absolutely.
That was the day. So I watched it from home. I wasn't, because of the pandemic, I didn't travel to Milwaukee to be part of that installment. So I watched it from home. And again, it's an experience that stirred my soul. I thought about my grandmother's had quite the journey. I probably don't have enough time to go into all of that, but her daughter was murdered. Her granddaughter, along with her granddaughter, was murdered. Little Netta, who was named after her. And so I look back at just even that in and of itself, losing your daughter and granddaughter to a heinous murder. I look back on the way in which she grew up with segregation and then the things, how she responded to, losing her daughter and granddaughter, how she used that and responded to that situation with a lot of positive things, to do things to help the community, help young people, instead of going to jail, have them come be part of their youth center and do different projects and let them work with them instead of having to be in jail. So there's a number of programs and services that she offered through a nonprofit that she ran. But nonetheless, it was on that day that I really started to look at, well, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? What kind of impact am I getting the highway? Not right now.
quite the inspiration.
Yeah,
Quite the high,
so
the high bar she
doing?
set for you there.
So it was, what am I doing? How am I responding to the things that are going on? What's my part to play in all this? And then it was 2 days later. I was training for my own personal half marathon. It was a 10-mile run, and I'll never forget it. I know exactly where I was. I was on Adams Road off of 20. It was near 23 and Adams, and I was doing a 10-mile run, which was my longest run ever in my life. And I was heading north. It's out in Granger. I was heading north though, up 23, and I said, "That's it. I am supposed to share a story about my late cousin. My late cousin is little Netta.
Yes.
She's my grandmother's granddaughter, and she unfortunately was murdered at age 9. But before she was murdered, her birthday is December 27th, and it was at her 6th birthday party where she had some friends come over that didn't get gifts for Christmas, and it was then those she gave away her gifts to her friends who came to that party. And so it was during that run that I said, I'm writing that book. I'm sharing that story. I'm here this is part of what I'm supposed to do in this moment. It's a story of love, a story of compassion, a story of kindness. And I said, I've got the energy, I've got, the resources and the capacity to do it. This is what I'm going to do. But I said, you know what? It's not just the book. I'm going to actually resurrect the program that my grandmother formerly did in my cousin's memory. And I resurrected that program working closely with my dad. I didn't know my cousin. And so, I knew her, but I was 1 when she was 6. And so I've heard stories about her, but I don't remember her. And so I actually interviewed my dad and said, tell me all about Netta. Yeah. So I know she had about her birthday and what she did there. And I know, of course, that she was unfortunately murdered. But I said, give me more, because I said, Dad, I want to write this story and share it with the world. And he was so supportive. And he and I have been just on this journey together, not just around the Little Netta story itself, but with working with the program that we're now in the 4th year of that program.
Which is back in your hometown of Milwaukee?
Back in my hometown of Milwaukee. What we do each year is we've partnered with United Way of Greater Milwaukee and Waukesha County. And essentially, long story short, we've actually worked through the schools. And so we partnered with United Way as the administrator of the program. They then are partnered with community schools that are in Milwaukee, which are some of the low-income students that are attending some of these schools. So what we do is we raise funds to provide each student at a school, and we've done it with 5 schools now, a holiday gift, as well as a copy of Little Netta's gift. And so It's a holiday giving program, but the thing that I think differentiates it for us is that A, it's in memory of my late cousin surrounding her birthday. B, it's through the school systems that we're actually doing it so that we know who's actually receiving the gifts, which I think adds value. We put the child's name in many cases on the gift itself, that they're getting a personalized gift. But then they're also getting a copy of the book. And so it's helping around education and literacy, and so things that I also care about.
So you've got some rich and sometimes sounds like painful but inspirational material that you've pulled from to get your publishing company started.
Yep.
So Little Netta's book, I don't know if people can see it here behind me. That was your second book, is that correct?
So it ended up being, ironically, it ended up being the first book that I published. Because after going through that experience in September, I said, this is it. This is what I need to focus on and do. And it was then I found a publisher who became my mentor in terms of what would it take to get this book off the ground. I did a lot of research on, do I self-publish? There's a lot of considerations around it. And yes, so it was Little Netta's Gift was the first book that I'm the author of, and then also the publisher of. The Leprechaun book that I mentioned, which was the first project, unfortunately, that's not even out yet. And so that's still a work in progress. I need to get on top of that because there's about 70 leprechauns now, not 60.
So maybe for the benefit of our listeners, we've mentioned, you're mentioning the Leprechaun book that you're working on, and for folks who can see the book in the background here. So, part of your inspiration came from your family history. Part of your inspiration also came from your own life experience.
Yes.
Very connected to Notre Dame.
Yes. Just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about that and how both of those experiences led to the first publications of your company.
Sure. So born and raised in Milwaukee, was fortunate to be accepted at Notre Dame as an undergraduate student, came here, had a wonderful 4-year experience, was engaged in a lot of different activities across the campus. But it was in the spring of my sophomore year that I really, just for fun, tried out for to serve as a leprechaun mascot at the university. My roommates, section mates said, Mike, you should do it. And I did it for fun. And I was like, oh my gosh, I won. so that just changed the experience in a positive way at Notre Dame. I'm a huge sports fan. Sports have been a huge part of my life in so many ways. And so to now be really in the action, if you will, in terms of being an ambassador for a great university, but also deeply engaged in the sporting events and activities. It was unbelievable. So I did that for 2 years. And that also set off an entire journey around. So I was the first Black student to serve in that role. And I didn't really set out to do that. It wasn't a goal to say I want to be the first, but that's what happened. And you talk about how that played a role in my life. It's embracing that and sharing that story, hopefully encouraging other people who may not traditionally consider themselves people that could be part of the role. You got a little, you got the beard going. You could.
I do.
You could rock something.
Yeah.
Maybe
we have some leprechaun recruiting happening.
Yeah.
I like this.
Although I'll tell you,
I'm not limber enough to do that job anymore. but yeah.
But I'll tell you, it's interesting. It's funny you say a beard, and then I see, of course, you don't have a beard. But it's not a requirement, as an example. So people would say, "Oh, you got the beard, you should be left." Yeah. But it's actually not a requirement that the leprechaun has to be. First of all, it's a fictional character.
Right. Right.
So, but that's the thing. People have a vision in their head of what they think it should look like. And then just kind of breaking that cycle of what people might think it is and actually showing that it could be something different than what's in your head. Right now, we're to the point where we've had 4 women now serve as the leprechaun. And so it was a great experience. And it's one that I've leaned into in terms of just being part of who I am.
I love that your roommates kind of put you up to it. I think that's great. And I also think about what you said a moment ago, like you have this energy, this way to light up a room. Has that always been there? Like if we look back, is that
if I'm being honest with myself, yes. Yes. I've always been the center of attention in most cases, and just not so much center of attention, but I bring,
The energy.
positive and positive energy.
Yep.
Well, I guess it might be whatever energy there is that's going on, right? But yes, in most cases, energy to a room. You typically know when I'm there in some way. And again, I'm more embracing that later. I didn't embrace it fully back then. I just kind of did what I did and went about my business. But now I'm more fully embracing the fact that I'm more empowered and that I've got gifts, I've got talents, I'm an influencer, and that there's some initiatives that I could actually lead and start that could lead to something that's going to be bigger than what could even be imagined or what anybody can imagine. So anyhow, but
No, I love that. It's funny what you just said. Like you went about your business, and now I think it's like the superpower that is your business.
it is my business now.
It is your
Yes.
business, and I
Yes.
think that's really interesting. And so, just to piggyback on that a little bit further, so talking about becoming a publisher.
Yes.
So tell me how that happened, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about the business model, and how did you decide to go the self-publishing route?
Sure. So yes, there are so many routes that you can go in publishing. I mean, the industry has changed so much in terms of just having a traditional publisher, and then you have an author, illustrator. I mean, now you've got hybrid publishers. You've got what I consider myself to be an independent publishing company, and some independent publishing companies are growing at a very rapid pace and taking on some of the top 5 publishers in the world. And so that journey really started with having the idea for the first book, the book that's not published, about the former leprechauns, but looking into what do you need? I need someone to maybe design the cover. I need someone to design the internal cover pages of the book. Do I need a publisher, right? Well, what if I'm the author of the book? Am I the author or am I the editor? Like what am I serving if I'm putting these stories together? So just kind of better understanding the landscape of the publishing environment is really what I did in 2020.
Okay.
And so you enter Lil Netta's Gift, which is a story that was very personal. I wanted 100%. I wanted full creative control of the output of the book. And so that's ultimately the decision when it came to doing it myself versus leaning to another publishing company. I said, you know what, I want full control.
Yep.
And so, but it requires a lot of additional effort, right? I had to find an editor. I had to find a designer. I had to find my own illustrator. I'm doing my own marketing, promotion, distribution, all these inventory, fulfillment, like all these different facets of the business where a publisher adds so much value. Those were all things that I had to figure out in some way. And you've got print on demand. You've got some books that are pre-printed. So there's a lot of facets that go into it in consideration. So that was the route that was right for me. So
Were you a book lover as a kid,
No.
as a young
No.
adult?
Not at all. Not at all. It's my wife.
Okay.
If she heard this, when she hears this podcast, she'll be shaking her head. Like I've got 1,000 books on my shelf that I have not read, but they're great books. I'm not. I am now definitely a podcast listener.
Okay.
That's for sure. That's my jam. I listen to a lot of self-help stuff, a lot of community development stuff. And
The Rooted in Reaching podcast.
The Rooted in Reaching.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly. It's a big
exactly.
one. Yeah.
I listened to 5 episodes in the last 3 days. So yeah. But
Yeah.
it's been that's been really my jam mostly. A lot of the books that I have read are more self-help, like Atomic Habits type books. And my wife just thinks
It's interesting though, because publishing to me it feels almost old-fashioned in a sense, and I think it's easy to romanticize publishing. There's something about the craft of holding a book in your hands, and the artwork and the design, and even the choice of the font in the book, and the thickness of the pages. And right. So I mean, that was a big leap for you to take then into this world of craft and of long tradition extending back centuries.
It was a leap, especially given, right? A lot of content is moving online. There's audiobooks, there's ebooks. And so, but I found that, yes, people still love to sit and hold a book in their hand. And there's just something special about the experience of, and in this scenario with my children's books, of an adult or a teenager or whoever it is,
Mm-hmm.
sitting with a child or a group of children, reading and sharing the story with them. There's something just special about that experience. Not that you can't do that through an ebook per se, but it's something about turning the pages together and pointing to the words. Just something. There's a special component about that experience that I thought would be good to help bring to life through this story. And but you're right. Those details, and really, I could not have done any of this if it weren't for one of my core values. And when it comes to collaborations and partnerships and having trusted resources and people that you work with, I was able to find an editor. Her name is Cara Kryn. She's also Notre Dame, class of 2004. She's class of 04 and 01.
Mm-hmm.
She and I were on a cheerleading team together for one season.
I see.
And so I knew her, but I found out she was an award-winning writer and editor. Like, oh my gosh, Cara, hey, I got this book, Little Netta's Gift. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And so we found her. I found her. Then through her, we found another illustrator, which is one of her section mates from a dorm. And it's just, there's a Black alumni network at Notre Dame. I reached out into that network and said, hey, anyone know of an illustrator that might want to go on a journey with me? And a couple people mentioned a guy named Salim Nuruddin. He's class 2005 from Notre Dame, and he's the illustrator of Little Netta's Gift.
Okay.
So he had never illustrated a book. I had never written or published a book, but it was just, I call it a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's people working together that kind of want to go on this journey with you, and you do it together. It's the journey with my dad and United Way and the schools to bring that together. That program didn't exist. It's the journey for the Leprechaun's Game Day book, which is another book where you're talking about ND being referenced. So there's licensing involved.
Oh,
There's another whole element. And then just the journey of now running a publishing business. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people now who are seeing me publish books that now want me to publish their books.
I see.
And so that's been an extended part of the journey where it's like, well, now I'm trying to really focus on what are my core values and what are the stories that not that I think should be shared, but what are the ones that I think I should be the one, like my company, through which those stories should be shared. And so that's one of the biggest questions that I'm facing right now is which projects do I focus on? I mentioned the first book, the first book idea.
Right.
It's not finished.
It's still not finished.
So,
yeah.
But maybe it's just not time right now. But again, I'm giving myself all the excuses in the world. But nonetheless, that's the biggest thing is as I grow and more stories become available, which ones do I, where do I pour energy?
Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that, because I can imagine this happens, right? You start this publishing company and you have a couple of books under your belt now. So people start to reach out to you and say, hey, Mike, I've got this great book idea. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this. And all of a sudden you're in the position where you have to say, okay, I'm bringing my own sense of purpose to this mission.
Right.
But how do I start to decide who are the right people for me to work with, and what kind of stories does SOULSTIR want to tell?
Yes. So you're spot on. And this is something that I'm literally working through and navigating almost every single day. What I tried to do when I established SOULSTIR as a company is lay out some of the core values and the things that I thought were very key to our reason for being. And one of the reasons for being is to inspire, empowerment, and action, kind of from within. So to help people know and understand that they have gifts, they have abilities, and they are empowered to do things, but to also encourage them to do that, to do something. And that's the first question I ask when it comes to someone who approaches me about a book. Does this book inspire empowerment? Does it invoke a sense of empowerment in someone if they are enjoying the story? Does it have the potential to move someone to action? And those are some of the initial questions that I try to pose. And even just when they present the story or the idea to me, does it even move me? Like right now, I mean, I'm the leader.
Sure.
So I get to make the ultimate call. So does it even move me? And is it something that I feel, the other part of it is it something that I feel, I have the resources to support it in the way that it deserves to be supported? or B, is this where I want to actually divert the limited resources that I do have? I'm fortunate to have a number of illustrators and editors that I work with on a regular basis, but is this where I want to direct the attention? And so those are tough conversations because in many, sometimes I have to say no.
Sure.
I'm not the publisher for you, but I always offer up the fact that, hey, I'm happy to, as you're navigating the space, I said, please call me anytime. There's a lot of different types of publishers out there, different arrangements and agreements. I say, if you want to bounce anything off of me, please don't hesitate to do so. People help me as I got started on the journey, and I'm happy to help others as well, even if I'm not their publishing partner, if you will.
That's great of you, and also I'm sure very important for those authors who are just taking the first step on their journey.
Exactly. And that's something someone told me. They were like, Mike, they said, Mike, you should create a class or a course or something. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, Mike, you've now done it. You've now gone from an idea that was in your head to now, I mean, I guess technically you could say 4 books, 3 books that are published in 2 different categories, some children's books, others are books on leadership for adults. You've now gone from ideation to execution, and you're in the middle of continuing it. So people, like, what you do and what you share might encourage someone to take that first step. And so, but I'm always here to help if people have questions on the industry. It's a tough industry to navigate right now because there's just so many different arrangements that you could have with people. But I think that's also the beauty of it as well. You can find the right fit for you and where you are in your life and the story you're trying to tell as you go on the journey.
Gotcha.
What have you learned about yourself on the entrepreneurial journey? What gives you energy? What takes your energy?
So ideation. And again, my wife is probably like, yep.
Yeah.
Ideation is the part that really, really gives me a lot of energy. So coming up with different ideas, not just for my own works, but even with someone that I may be partnering with, putting together what this might look like, what's the ultimate message we want to share, and just coming up with all different ways to promote it and all that. So that's kind of the fun, the ideation part, that number 1. And then 2, the most exciting thing where I get the most energy, quite candidly, is in just the engagement with people. When I'm on the phone with an editor or an illustrator or just a thought partner, and we're talking about something and next steps on something, I leave those conversations just like, let's go. Now, some of them, unfortunately, are happening, either very early in the morning or at night, or, there's something, but I leave them like, like I feel good. Like I like this direction. Like I like where we're about to go with this, and so those are the moments where I just feel so energized, and I want to do everything that we talk about at that moment. Like literally, so instead of going to sleep as I should, I want to actually execute on everything in that moment. And what I'm really learning is you can have a lot of these great ideas. You can have a lot of just really cool things and fun things, but it's like, how do you prioritize it? Sure. Is that where you want to focus your energy? And maybe it's a great idea that may not be ready to be launched now, but maybe it's ready for 2025. Had I tried to launch Little Netta's Gift and the Leprechaun's Game Day, had I tried to wait and publish those all together at the same time, it would have just been way too much. And so just trying to say, you know what, I'm going to focus on Little Netta's Gift. I'm going to focus on the Leprechaun's Game Day children's book. And then the third book, I'm going to focus on, publishing a high quality book that's written by Father Edward Monk Malloy, who's a former president emeritus of Notre Dame. I want to focus on making sure his book is high quality, and I put the energy and time into doing that. That's great. And so that prioritization. So there's a lot of other book ideas that I have, and I'm like, okay, Mike, you got to really focus, prioritize. There's people in the world who have not heard of Little Netta yet, and I think they still need to hear that story of a little girl and her kindness. And I haven't executed well enough yet to get that story into their homes or into their schools. Sure. And so there's much work to do even with the first book.
Even with the
In
books that
terms
are
of
already out
that are
there.
already out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One quick follow-up on that. I love ideas too.
Yeah.
And so also with that, it's learning what is the counterbalance to
Yes.
that. And so sometimes I love lots of the assessments, Working Genius or the Enneagram. And so I'm going to guess you're a Sen, which is the enthusiast.
Yeah, I'm an enthusiast.
Yes.
No question.
Yes.
No question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then how do you counterbalance that with the execution, the tenacity? Where is that support coming from? Because I'm guessing that's not your most favorite thing to do.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
But there are things that need to be done. And
Yes.
as a leader now, not just a leader within an organization, but my organization, I have to really focus on understanding my financials, budgeting, planning out which books we're going to focus on, what team members might I need. And then I do a lot of writing and just kind of reflection on what, like, we're talking down to okay, this book needs to go on Amazon, for example. Now, am I going to hire someone to do this for me, or am I going to go through the exercise of doing it? And so I'm going to go through the exercise of doing it now, but my plan is to get someone else to do all of that stuff down the road. But I think it's good for me now to go through it. So uploading files and photos and writing copy, for example, for these, that's not where I excel. And so, but that reflective time that I try to take to try to capture the key areas that I need to focus on is very healthy for me. I don't enjoy it, but it's needed.
You feel like you want to do it at least once yourself before.
Yeah,
hiring
for
someone
some
else to take
things.
that
Yep.
on for you, depending
It
on what
depends
is.
on what it is. But yep, I love doing it first. Yep, myself. But I definitely don't want to upload books and to print on demand and all the different things that I'm working through now. But yeah.
Sure. So you have a daughter yourself, I believe.
Yes.
I don't know how old she is right now.
She's 6.
She's 6. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, as a dad who's reading children's books to your daughter, are you the kind of dad who uses different voices for the different characters?
It's funny you say that because I'm not actually.
Okay.
And I visited a school, and it was a group of students. I think they were K through 2nd, I want to say. And one of the guys after, he's like, Mike, maybe you should consider. He's like, that was a great. His phrasing was perfect. He says, Mike, great job. Even better if you consider using voices.
Okay.
Because I was like, you know what? I didn't even think about that. But so now I try to use Little Netta's mom's voice a little bit when the story starts. Little Netta's mom, and then Little Netta herself is talking in the story. So I try to, use that voice. And now it's normal that I do it. So I do it. It's more normal today. And then in the Leprechauns Game Day book, we take it up a notch. Okay. We don't just go to voices, but we do cheers and the whole 9. So it's an active and engaging book. So
kids probably love that.
Oh, they love it. They love it. My daughter, we can't read it during the week anymore as our nighttime reading book because it doesn't settle her down at all. Right. So it's a book that we got to save for the weekends. Right. And so, but it'll take a good 15 minutes because in the book, the leprechaun does the push-ups and we do the push-ups and we do the fight song. We sing the fight song. The alma mater. Yeah. There's the band is playing and we make all the band noises. And so the trumpets are in there. You got it. So yeah, but we have a lot of fun with it. But the guy who gave me that feedback, I really appreciated it. He said, Mike, and I appreciate the way he said it too. I'm like, man, that's really good. Even better if you consider using voices. Right. And I was like, you know what? Yeah.
That is a really nice way to phrase it.
It is. It was very kind of him. Yeah. But
my other one on that I heard recently that I love, which is I'm going to give you this feedback because I have high expectations and I know you can meet them. And I thought that was a really nice one. Like you can.
They're high and I know you can do it. Yeah, I love it. So I love it.
Even better if.
Even better if.
So we're running a little low on time already.
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to make sure we ask you about life outside of work a little bit. You moved back here to the South Bend-Elkhart area.
Yes.
Even if you don't live downtown, that's totally fine. But wondering, like, what else are you involved in the community to make this a better place to live, work, and play?
Sure. So great question. So right now, quite candidly, I came back to the South Bend-Elkhart area in 2015 after being a student when I graduated in 2001. So I came back in 2015 to work at the University of Notre Dame. So that was a major part of my engagement and involvement in the community initially while I was there. Now I'm still quite candidly figuring out kind of where I want to pour my energy in the community. I've mainly focused on schools in the Elkhart and South Bend, Mishawaka area. So I visit a lot of schools. And so as I think about where when I live, play, work, it's kind of mixed into my engagement with the school systems and with the St. Joe County Library, for example. We do events down there, but my daughter comes, my wife comes, we go to brunch at Peg's after and everybody's happy. And so, but the engagement through the schools, my daughter will come, we do events with a lot of local companies in the area where we'll collaborate on some things, but my daughter will come, she'll hand out the books. And so a lot of the things that we're doing that I'm focused on now are around the books or speaking and different engagements, but it's tied to something that's happening in the community. I spoke at a Rotary Club event last year, and then just recently I spoke at the Kiwanis Club of South Bend, and so I spoke at the one in South Bend and the one of Notre Dame, the Rockney Kiwanis Club. So I've spoken at both of them. So it's been those types of opportunities where I've worked to engage through those events. I've met people that are outside of the Notre Dame specific network, which has been helpful. If you can imagine, when I came back to work in Notre Dame, I didn't really know anyone else in the community. It had been 16 years since I had been here. And so, or 14, if I do my math right. So it was, the Notre Dame community was my community essentially. Yeah. But as I go and visit different schools and meet members of the PTOs and visit different organizations, I'm now meeting more people outside of the Notre Dame core network that I had when I first moved here. And it's been great.
It'll be really fun to introduce you to our next guest, who's also doing a lot in the public schools and working on substitute teacher programming.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's fun to connect the dots.
Can't wait. Can't wait to see him. Yeah.
Exactly right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. This was great. And we are, I think, very lucky and blessed to have you back in South Bend, Elkhart area. We hope we stay here and hope you keep publishing amazing books that are impacting not only our area, but all around the country and even around the world, I imagine. So thank you for having me. Thanks for the work you all are doing. I think in creating this space for entrepreneurs to share their stories, for people to connect hopefully with them, as we're going to make a connection with the guy helping substitute teachers. And I just think it's great work to get the word out because I think trying to do it by yourself it's very difficult, and you just don't maximize the potential of what could be through a lot of collaboration and partnerships. And that's part of my core, not just core value when it comes to my company, but core in life. I'm a village person. I grew up in a village. There were 30 people who came to my freshman drop off at college. And so there were 30 people. It was my sisters, aunts, uncles, people from my church. And so this to me is the work you all are doing and here. This is part of now my village. And so I appreciate the work you all are doing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.